Imagine you're camping in the deep woods when a bear comes roaring into your campsite. It's this huge Kodiak giant with razor-sharp claws and fangs. So, what option do you choose? Freeze, fight, or flight? Freeze, and you're lunch. Fight, and well, you're probably still lunch. So you flee. You run for your life to safety. And when you do so, you switch off the natural fear response. We run into all sorts of bears every single day. Maybe a careless driver rear-ends your brand new Jeep, or a loved one hasn't answered a dozen texts. Fear sure finds a way to rear its ugly head. So, what do? Sit down and cry? Fish out your insurance card? File a missing persons report? Whatever the problem, be it a nagging little inconvenience or one of those huge Kodiak bear-sized problems, you have to turn off the fear switch. If you don't, if you just dim it a little bit, it drains your ability to make a good decision and lead your best life. And I want you to lead your best life. So, let me ask you a question. What scares you? What big, bad bears cause you grief right now? Is it the thought of failing an exam? Or wandering into a job fair, overwhelmed with options, and never finding the booth that screams, "This is your destiny"? What about showing up to class, totally unprepared, and finding yourself in a heated debate with another student? What about life after graduation? How about those student loans? Are you afraid you're going to end up in a dead-end job and that paying off your debt will make you feel like you're drowning? Take a look around at the people you're here with today. We all have something in common. The truth is, we're all afraid of something. Do you let your fears lay you low, or do you fight past them? Well, I'm standing here today because in 2011, I met a bear that scared me to death. But I didn't let it kill my dreams. I took it up with my imaginary friend named Cinder. And with his help, I grabbed that bear by the throat, I wrestled it to the ground, and I harnessed its power to make myself stronger and more resilient. That bear's name was BRCA1, the breast cancer genetic mutation. How would your life be different if, overwhelmed by fear, you think like you're talking to an imaginary friend? Now, I know what you're thinking. I've heard this before. Rubina, a chiropractor, wants me, a grown adult, to talk to someone that doesn't exist? Yes, that's exactly what I want you to do. I know most of us have moved on from the tooth fairy, but don't minimize your imaginary friend too quickly. Let me explain. Imaginary friends are a common and normal manifestation. If you didn't already know, according to research out of the University of Oregon by M. Taylor, by the age of 7, 65% of kids have an imaginary friend. Now, when I was 7, I was afraid to walk down the upstairs hallway past the bathroom to my bedroom because I was convinced an evil monster lived in the shower. So, my brother told me to sing "Mary Had a Little Lamb" while I danced down the hallway. But my hair still stood on end. My mom told me to turn on all of the lights and sprint down the hallway. But that didn't keep my teeth from chattering. And that's when I could see my imaginary friend. He's a small, fluffy little bear with baby blue overalls. And I decided to talk to him. And I said, "I'm scared of the monster. I think the monster's gonna gobble me up. I don't wanna walk alone. Should I hold my breath? Maybe I'll keep walking." And I made it to the safety of my room every single time. Now, talking to an imaginary friend about your fears shouldn't cause concern. You're not crazy. Imaginary friends provide a safe place for us to discuss our difficult emotions, process challenging situations, practice our social skills, and leap into positive action, all while decreasing stress in the body and keeping us healthy. So, what should you talk to your imaginary friend about? Well, today, I'd like to offer 3 topics that make great conversation with your imaginary friend: honesty, options, decisions. First and foremost, we need to keep it real. I remember a patient, a dedicated athlete on her university's rowing team. She consistently came to me with excruciating shoulder pain. So, when I suggested she add more rest days into her routine for recovery, she was taken aback, firmly believing that winning required this relentless, no days off approach. And it struck me that she might be masking a fear of underperforming, something that I could relate to all too well. When I was diagnosed with the BRCA1 mutation, I too fell into this protection mode, telling myself I wasn't afraid. But as I got ready for my first ever screening mammogram in my 20s, I found myself thinking about my imaginary friend and whether I could tell him my deepest, darkest fears. And in this moment of vulnerability, I told Cinder that I was scared of dying from cancer. There it was, my fear laid bare, met with silence, but this honesty I finally embraced. I suggested to my patient that a conversation with an imaginary friend could help her find the honest mirror. Now, you don't need a childhood imaginary friend. It can be somebody new. But you do need your voice and a good dose of honesty. Jim Morrison once said, "Expose yourself to your deepest fear. After that, fear has no power, and the fear of freedom shrinks and vanishes. You are free." When you talk to an imaginary friend, your honesty becomes an ally instead of a death sentence. Now, I talked to Cinder in the waiting room, but once I got into the exam area for my mammogram, I was fine. I was ready to face my fear, and you know what? I have every single year since then. Be careful about telling yourself you're not afraid. It's a vicious cycle, running around in circles, trying to get away from the bear. And the more you lie to yourself, the more guilty and regretful you feel. And the more guilty and regretful you feel, the more likely you are to continue lying to yourself. In my 20 years as a chiropractor, I've witnessed the detrimental effects of the chronic fear response. I remember a patient, a senior at a local university. We'll call her Bernice. Well, Bernice only came to see me when her neck pain from obsessive late-night study sessions rendered her unable to sleep. Despite my suggestion to come see me twice a week for healing, she insisted she didn't need it because her roommate had extra prescription painkillers, which she now swore by for pain relief, so she could continue to burn the candle at both ends. And it seemed to me that Bernice had put on a pair of blinders instead of facing her fear of failing that exam. Are you going to reach for the first thing that's offered to you? A 2020 study out of the Journal of Substance Abuse tells us that 57% of young adults receive prescription painkillers free from their friends or family. Now, my passion for healing is deeply tied to fighting the opioid crisis in this country. So, I suggested to Bernice, as I often do, that she explore a conversation with her imaginary friend to come up with a list of different ways that she could study. And after her conversation, she came up with the following: group study, mock presentations, and practice exams. And you know what? This led her to realize that group study was a great way for her to trust her skill set and apply the knowledge she was actually learning. A much less time-consuming strategy to stop burnout and keep the prescription painkillers away. I learned this lesson the hard way. After I was diagnosed with the BRCA1 mutation, a nurse shoved a psychiatrist's card into my hand. And so I put my blinders on. But after some time, I found myself chatting with my imaginary friend. What else could I do? I call this being a shameless shopaholic. You have to shop around for the things that serve you. Cinder gave me the courage to walk through the doors of my first ever group therapy appointment, just like he helped me walk down that hallway when I was 7. And you know what? This turned out to be exactly what I needed, an environment where I could thrive away from the pressure of traditional therapy. It's so important to know your options and to know what your university and your local community have to offer. Another student that came to see me, we'll call him Roberto. Well, he had a deep passion for playing the cello, yet he found himself entangled in the pressure of expectations. While we focused on correcting his posture to prevent injury, he told me about his daily struggle with migraines. So I asked him what some of his daily stressors were, but he shrugged and he changed the topic. So I asked him how it was going being a freshman music major, and he looked me dead in the eye and told me his major was actually engineering. He rubbed his temples and he told me it was a path chosen to fulfill his parents' dream rather than his own. It can be really scary to have to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life when you're still really young. But what could your life look like if you never got stuck again? If you lived life in alignment with who you truly are deep down inside? Then and there, I asked Roberto to harness the positive power of fear, and not just to manage his migraines, but to manage his decisions. Could he tell an imaginary friend the route he actually wanted his life to take? And if you're thinking of changing your major, you're not alone. According to the National Centers of Educational Statistics, 80% of students change their major at least once. Once Roberto embraced the decision he really wanted and heard himself say it out loud, it was so much easier for him to share it with his loved ones and guide them through exactly what it looked like. I know what it's like to live through a plot twist, to live through something that feels like it's completely uprooting your life. 12 years after my bombshell BRCA1 diagnosis, I made a decision to voluntarily go under the knife to remove both of my ovaries to bring my risk of ovarian cancer down to 0%. I took that bad hand and I flipped it into freedom to enjoy my life with my daughter and my husband. Now, I call upon you to use these conversation starters, honesty, options, and decisions, to strike up a chat with your imaginary friend when you feel scared. When the metaphorical bear is chasing you, think about your companion. I know, we're all so busy. Who has time to waste talking to an imaginary friend? But dedicating some regular time to being fearless sure sounds better than wasting years being scared. Scared somewhere that isn't right for you, scared of your sport meet, scared to set boundaries, or scared to step into a better life. On February 20th of 2025, I had another conversation with my imaginary friend. And I told him that I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Oof, another plot twist. But I'm wiser now when fear fills my body. Talking about honesty, options, and decisions, well, that's the self-talk that saves your life. So, while I go and fight this fight, let's all take a moment to say hi to our imaginary friend. Because life is too short, and we all deserve opportunities in our life for inversion so we can get past fear and take action. Thank you.